my self-care is for my children. So not just that I can be healthy for myself and I can be mentally stable for myself, but also for them.
This is Dr. Meenal, and welcome to Uncover Your Eyes, where we uncover reality. As a mom and eye doctor, I want to know it all. The 40s is the new career age. What a great positive societal shift towards the concept of lifelong learning. For many of us as parents, after having children, we've lost hope for career advancements, career changes. But let's face it, we are living generally a healthier, longer life. And so there's more hope for making those career advancements or those career changes later in life, even in our 40s or our 50s. A lot of us are starting to prioritize work life balance and just work fulfillment in general. So I think it's such a great concept that we don't need to have our full career path all set out in our 20s and 30s like we used to think before. But there's hope for change. And maybe we're even going to do better in our 40s, our 50s, or our 60s. So let's all jump on this bandwagon and start making career shifts, advancements, and finding just passion projects, even in our 40s or our 50s. Today, I have with us a doctor who is an inspiration to many of us, Dr. Rana Taji. Dr. Rana Taji is the owner and medical director of Toronto Medical Eye Associates in North York, Ontario. She is a lecturer and consultant for doctors and a clinical supervisor for student doctors from the US and Canada. Welcome, Dr. Taji. Well, thank you. Welcome, Dr. Taji.
Hi, Meenal. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thanks for being on today. So I just want to cut to the chase. I want you to tell us about your story. Tell us about how you did things, how you got to where you are.
So my story actually goes back to when I was 12. I was at school. My aunt was picking me up, and she noticed that I was just leaning in too close to my schoolwork. And she was like, "That's it. You can't see. We're going to the eye doctor."
Yeah.
And honestly, I was mortified. I had never been. What was going to happen? I had to wear glasses. What was wrong with my vision? I had no clue. So begrudgingly, I go. She takes me there. And this doctor is fabulous. He takes the time. He's so thorough. He's so kind. He explains everything, tells me why I need glasses. It just gives me so much reassurance.
Yeah.
So I walk away from that experience and I'm like, I want to make someone feel like that one day.
Yeah.
And that basically kind of trickled the sense of purpose, so to speak. And so from then on, it just became a passion to help others through eye care.
Absolutely. I love that. And, I feel, and correct me if I'm wrong, like you made a lot of your career advancements more later in life, post 30s. So tell me a little bit about why, because there's always that thought process that we need to do everything very early, why much later and how?
So I think we're redefining timelines. I think that that pressure of getting things done within a certain time is just not suitable to the average individual anymore. We're spending
Right.
more time in school. So, by the time I graduated, I was 28, right? And I had, done 3 degrees back to back. And then in order to kind of kickstart life, I had to take a step back and say, listen, like I'm not where some of my peers, are that just did a 4-year degree and started life earlier. My timeline is different. And I just needed to reevaluate the priorities. And with that said, marriage and children came along.
Hmm.
And when you want to focus on home life and career life, what a lot of people don't realize is that you don't have to do both all together. You can
Right.
have everything, but you might not necessarily have everything at the same time.
Right.
And so, with that said, at the beginning, while I was early in my career, it just kind of felt like a standstill while I was focusing on my home life and raising my children.
Absolutely, on something else, right? And I think a lot of us face that. Like I have felt that way as well. That you know, although we can do everything as parents. I mean, sometimes there are certain things that we need to focus on more than the other. Now I feel like I'm more in the stage where my kids are getting a bit older, so now I can kind of shift focuses a little bit, right? So I totally relate to that. So why do you think, like for men and women, parents, everybody, 40s is that new career age? Or like why are we making so many advancements in our 40s versus our 20s?
So you said it perfectly with the fact that like by then our children are a little bit older, so they become a
Mhm.
little more independent, a little more self-sufficient. So we're able to take that time to kind of focus more on ourselves. So perfect example is my sister who has, a baby and a toddler right now, and yet she's really doing so well with trying to get her workouts in. And I said to her, I never did that when I had these babies. Like it was all about survival mode, right? Like you are so ahead of the game for being able to do these workouts. And so, when I look at where I am now in terms of what I'm able to accomplish because my kids are older, I think there was no possibility of being able to do this regular travel, this regular amount of lecturing, taking all this time away from them when they really needed me more as young children. The other part is the outsourcing and the village, so to speak. So, they always say it takes a village to raise children. These days, our village is kind of consistent of hired help, so to speak. If our
Yeah.
families are not always available, people's families are across the country or across the world. One thing that I needed was the support and help of my family, and it didn't happen until I came home. I came back home to Canada, close to my family, and that's when I kind of like went back to my village to get that support. Because without the support of my family and them encouraging me and helping me and stepping in when I needed it, there's no way that I could do everything that I do now and travel and take that time to be away from my children. Mind you, yes, they're self sufficient, but not enough to leave them home alone when I'm on a
Yeah.
trip across the country. And so, with that said, I think that then we start to recognize that self care from prioritizing our sense of purpose becomes important because then we realize that if we're doing something that is pushing productivity and change in the world, and we're modeling that to our children, even though they may complain that we're not always available, but when they see us doing something that's really helping people and changing the world, that in itself becomes a fabulous role model for them and then pushes them to find a sense of purpose within themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I totally relate to the fact that it takes a village because it really does. And I feel that sometimes when you don't have that help, I mean, we all have, great families, supporting all of us, but and our endeavors and our children, but sometimes we need to be at home with our kids, and that's the bottom line, right? And so it's hard to tackle both your work life and life with your children when they need us, and that's the bottom line. And until they're getting older, we can't let them go, right? So I hear you on that. So I feel I don't know if it was cultural societal or what, but I feel like I was always told, or it was ingrained in my head, that you got to be that lawyer or that engineer or that doctor or just that professional or that business person in our 20s, at most your 30s. So why do you think there was that pressure from parents on us or our generation to be that person and achieve those career goals right away? Like, was it societal, cultural? Like, what do you feel? Did you have that pressure?
Oh, 100%. If you weren't a lawyer, an engineer, or a doctor, what else were you supposed to be, right? But I think success is being redefined.
Right.
So our success is not coming from, that fabulous degree or how much money you're making or how many houses you own. Your success is coming from, are you passionate about what it is that you're doing? Do you
Mm,
actually enjoy going into work every day? is there that sense of purpose? So I always reframe it back to sense of purpose, because when you have a sense of purpose within your job and within your career, I think you're one of the most successful people, because very few people wake up in the morning and look forward to going into their job. And I
Yeah.
think that we're fortunate because we have these careers and these professions where we get to change people's lives every day. And while there's such a huge responsibility with that, it is so powerful, because then it brings back self satisfaction towards us because we've actually made a difference in people's lives. So I
Yeah.
think that the definition of success now is
Different.
shifted. It's not just about how much money you're making or how many degrees you have or just how high up your position is within the company. I think it has to do with how much do you love your job and how fulfilling is your,
Right.
career and your job giving you to your life. And I think that is the shift. People want to do things that are fulfilling. People
Yeah.
want to have, again, that sense of purpose. So I think that's the
And
shift
that's
in
a good
society.
shift. And that, yeah, I feel like we are starting to want that fulfillment. And, I like to say, like, we say 2020, right? In the I world, or 20 happy, right? Because what's in a number? And it's kind of the same thing. Are you just happy? Like, there's no number you have to achieve or no profession you have to achieve, but are you happy? Are you fulfilled in your life? And you're right, there's that shift towards like that well-being or that mental health, that positive state. And I think parents are starting to understand that as well now, right? So there is that shift for sure. Um, in our 40s, most of us go through, I'm not there yet. I'd like to clarify. Almost there.
Okay, I just got there. I'd like to
Okay.
clarify.
Yeah, to clarify
So,
to our listeners and viewers. But in our 40s, we hear that I don't know. I've always heard that you go through midlife crisis in your 40s, right? So I'm going to wait for it. So, do you feel we're still going through those, or what is a midlife crisis? Are we going through that? Is that going to happen with this shift? And what kind of midlife crisis is really out there right now?
I think I feel like the minute that I turned 40, there was just so much introspection that ended up happening. And there was just kind of like this lens that I started viewing myself in, and it was differently. And it kind of then shifted towards like, okay, you've come this far in life. What is it that's most important to you? And I don't know if it's just because it's like, halfway through your life. I think that
Yeah.
because our goals are shifting and our timelines are shifting, I think that the midlife crisis now is shifting for everybody, right? It's just a kind of like this moment where you start to provide an internal reflection. And so
Right.
mine ended up hitting around that point, but I just think it was because of the timeline and the trajectory of everything that was happening in my life. When I hit 40, it was when, I had just really taken off in terms of like doing more lecturing and consulting and teaching. And there was just a different shift in my career in terms of what I was focusing on. And so it just led me to more self reflection. And I think it just
Yeah.
depends, again, because our timelines are shifting and they're
Yeah.
not really more as defined as they used to be. I think the midlife crisis is really shifting for a lot of people.
Right. It used to be thought of as almost a negative thing, right? Like, oh my God, you're going to have this midlife crisis. But I feel it's shifting towards a positive thing, which is almost like it's opening up that door to wisdom or just being a better human being and just shifting in that aspect. So, no, I agree with that. I also, when we look at the 40s, we're almost scared, right, to enter the 40s because of those thought processes of it being scary and what's going to happen to me. Am I going to do bad things, or bad things going to happen to me? But it's a positive thing now. We're almost looking forward to it. It's that time when maybe our kids are a bit older now and we have time to ourselves and we can just focus on ourselves, I think. Hopefully get in those workouts a little more, I guess, for me.
Yeah, I think it's just more of like an emotional maturity that we hit. So then we start to recognize that, that grind that our parents put themselves through, that sacrifice, a lot of them did so much for us so we could get to this position.
Yeah, yeah.
And now for us, it's like we're recognizing that, hold on a second, this level of sacrifice actually ends up in the long term hurting ourselves. And then
Mhm,
we
mhm.
potentially become more burdens on our children when we get older and we're not as healthy, right? And so my way of thinking and thought processes is my self-care is for my children. So not just that I can be
Absolutely.
healthy for myself and I can be mentally stable for myself, but also for them. Because the healthier and happier that I am, the healthier and happier that they are.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I think that a lot of people resonate with that. A lot of people relate to that because they think that, especially us, like we're the sandwich generation. We've got elderly parents that we're helping take care of, and then we've got young children that still need us as much as, independently and self sufficient they're becoming. But we're caught in this situation where we're taking care of two different generations, and we need to find the time for ourselves as well. And that's
Right.
very crucial because we want to get to a point where we also don't feel like we are burdening our children. And so
Right.
I think that the self care physically and mentally is extremely important. And that awareness in our 40s is causing us to shift.
Right. Yeah. I do feel like in our 20s and even 30s, early 30s, we spent, us sandwich generation people spent a lot of time focusing on career or just studying education. And we didn't have any time to ourselves. Like, I don't remember ever thinking about myself. I just always remember thinking about my career or pleasing
Hmm.
my parents. And now, things have shifted. So I've, again, a positive shift maybe in our 40s. So I mean, you do a lot, right? You have kids, you have a family, you're lecturing, you're owning a practice, you're doing everything. So how are you balancing it all? I know you have a village, but how are you balancing it all? That's straining on your on mental health, your well-being. Plus, I know you work out a lot. I want to say you've told me that before. 4 days a week, right? So, I mean, how? Because I can barely find time 1 day a week. So, and I do less than you. So, how are you doing it? Tell me.
So, spoiler alert, I think that the whole concept of work life balance is such a stress. And I think that there is no true work life balance. I think that when you are focusing on one thing, something is always getting sacrificed. So, when I'm at a conference all day lecturing and my son has a basketball tournament and I get a call and he doesn't want to play because he's upset that his cheerleader is not there, that's the balance, which is not really
Hmm.
a balance, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
When I decide not to go to our large association conference over a weekend because my son has his basketball tournament all weekend and I want to be there for him and be his cheerleader, and he played his little heart out, but I missed out on an important career weekend.
Hmm. Hmm.
So
Hmm.
something that really related to me, and I'll never forget it, is Shonda Rhimes. Everybody knows Shonda Rhimes. She did a valedictorian speech for Dartmouth like 9 years ago.
Okay.
And she said, everybody's asking me, how do you do it all? How do you balance it all? And she said, a lot of the times I'll tell them, well, I have a lot of help. I outsource. I hire people. I do this. I do that. And
Yeah.
then she was like, but the truth is that I don't balance it. And I couldn't have hit more and couldn't have been so much more relatable because she was like, when I'm finishing that deadline for the script, I'm missing bath time at home. When
Hmm.
I'm going to my daughter's first swim meet, I'm missing, an amazing awards ceremony or night at the Hollywood event or something, right? And so she said the same thing. She said, this whole notion of balancing it is just almost like a myth. We have to understand that this level of stress that we place on ourselves is an internal standard that we've created,
Right.
that we can balance it all. And so kind of like readjusting your framework and your standards to recognizing that it's okay not to balance it all. It's
Right.
okay to just kind of like focus on one thing at a time sometimes and recognizing that there's going to be a sacrifice along the way if you want to do it all. But are you going to do it all perfectly? And the answer is no, you're not.
Yeah.
And so I think that adjusting my standards has helped. Um, I used to be like extremely super, super meticulous and organized when it came to
Hmm.
like, housework and everything being in its place. And now I just have come to realize that the clutter on the dining room table,
Doesn't matter.
from the kids' work. And, they just walk in, they leave their soccer stuff right in front, they don't pick it up. It's not worth me, losing my marbles over it, so
Mhm.
to speak.
Mhm.
And so just recognizing that something has to give. And
Absolutely.
that's okay. There was
Yeah.
somebody else that made a very basically significant point. Michelle Obama said in an interview was, you have to recognize that you can have it all, she said, but she said, you can't have it all at the same time.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so I think that's something that is so important because here we are, you know, we're career individuals, we're parents, we're successful entrepreneurs, we're doing all of these things, and we didn't get them all at once.
No, absolutely not. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I think that's the thing that people need to realize is that there is always a sacrifice somewhere or another, and it doesn't always come at once. And to readjust the standards and the mind shift is, I think, the most important thing to be able to come out of this in a sane manner.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's so great, and it resonates, I'm sure, with everyone. I was also a very meticulous person. Everything had to be so organized in my house. I think I developed OCD after kids.
Hmm.
Um, but just like you said, adjusting and shifting that mentality towards what's really important at this time and what's not, right? And how do we prioritize those things? Um, but yeah, when we, social media is a huge aspect for this, because when we look at other healthcare professionals or just people in general, even friends, right, and they're doing everything, it looks like
Hmm.
they're doing all these activities in one day and they're going on all these trips. A lot of times that's fake, right?
Yep.
And it's not all happening at once, and they haven't achieved all those things at once, and it's just being shown at once or over one period of time. And I think that's so important that we don't compare ourselves as well to others or want to always be just like them and achieve exactly what they have, because they didn't achieve all those things all at once. It came over time. So, um, you know, and even for us, right? Like you said, it's not like we, had children and became entrepreneurs at the exact same time, right?
Hmm.
They came in different timelines. Some became entrepreneurs first, then had kids, and then
Yep.
achieved other goals, or vice versa. Some just became entrepreneurs and then opened multiple businesses. They didn't open them all three at once or all four at once. It happened later in life. So
Hmm.
I think that's definitely great. Do you feel that it's ever too late to, dream or have those goals? Sometimes I feel like, there are patients, not patients, people in their 50s and 60s that, want to make those shifts or do things. Do you feel like it's ever too late, or, how do you feel about that?
Never, never. I think that it's never too late to dream. I think ambition and motivation are usually what drives success, right? So, like, if you have it in you, if you have the drive and you have the motivation, there is no age that is hindering an individual from really going after their dreams. I mean, when I was in
Mhm.
optometry school, we had some of our classmates that were married with kids that were in their 40s, and they were in optometry school for the first time.
Wow.
And here I
Yeah.
am, this, like, 22, 23-year-old kid, and I'm thinking, oh my God, like, I can't even imagine, right? We had classmates that were in optometry school and they were getting married and having kids in the middle of school. And in my head, I'm thinking, there's no way, I can barely take care of myself, right? So I think that there's never a situation in time where, it's like, that's it, the ship has sailed, it's too late. I think it's, if you have the desire and the passion, I think that those are very powerful driving forces to make any dream a reality.
Right. And most of us, I think, by the, 30s, 40s, 50s have already gained all this knowledge, this wisdom, that it's the right time to start dreaming, right? I
Hmm.
mean, we have all the tools in our tool belt, and now it's let's start dreaming and let's start, doing passion projects, doing things we love, that can become careers, really. Because sometimes in our 20s and 30s, we're forced into careers because that's just the right thing to do, or that just seemed like the normal thing to do, whether it was societal or pressure from our parents, whatever it was. But now we've learned all that, and now it's time to dream, I guess, right? It's
And
time to dream
and
for us.
and things that didn't give us a sense of purpose and fulfillment. And then all of a sudden, as we got older and we recognized the need for that fulfillment, shifted, our career path, our goals, whatever trajectory, right?
Yeah.
So, and that's okay. Like, it's okay to shift. I think that the biggest pressure is yourself.
Yeah.
So
We put a lot of pressure on ourselves.
you are
Yes.
held to your standards. And when you adjust your standards and you lower your own expectations and your pressure, that usually like kind of lets off a load. And
Right.
so I think that that's the biggest thing is that, don't look at your next door neighbor and what they're accomplishing and what they're doing. Set your own standards, irrespective, irrelevant of anybody else. And I think that in and of itself then helps to kind of like relieve that,
Right.
pressure that quote unquote we feel society is placing on us.
Right. And setting our own goals. Like sometimes I feel like, whether we see another doctor doing this or another friend doing something, we're like, oh, I want to do that or I wish I did that. But was that really our goal? Was that really something we wanted to do? Or we're just happy and we want to be kind of doing what they wanted to do because they gained fame by that? So, what I've kind of shifted towards is just making little goals for myself, within the next year. This is kind of where I want to see myself, and anything on top of that is just the cherry on top, right? It's just we
Absolutely.
have to set those goals for ourselves. That's so huge. I remember once listening to I don't know if it was at the Oscars or an Academy, but Reese Witherspoon said that her, and I love her by the way, but
Oh, she's
her
fabulous.
her biggest career advancements happened in her 40s. She said that's when she gained, whether it was more respect, more, fame or money, finances. That's when all her advancements happened. And because, I love her so much, I was like, wow, if she can do it, I can do it in my 40s. So that was huge that now we have so many women and men that we're looking up to achieving these goals. And Dr. Taji, you're one of those women for us in our profession where it's like,
Thank you.
wow, look at you, and a lot of us are inspired by the fact that you're really, setting those goals and achieving them.
I think it's just about being authentic to your true self. I think that the image that I, project out there is just one of, simplicity for me, first and foremost, and to kind of like recognize that it's just about, making myself happy first. And that happiness stems from just being the simplest, most authentic, version of myself. And so I think that, in our 20s and our 30s, that may have been more about pleasing other people
Yes,
and
yes, absolutely.
projecting an image that we perceived that they would like.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I think I'm just over that.
Yeah, yeah,
And,
absolutely.
put simply, and it's not that I don't want to please people. Of course, I want the whole world to love me, which,
Yeah,
nobody, 100% of the
not
population
happening.
is never gonna love you. But I also recognize that, staying true and authentic to myself is just so much more genuine
Fulfilling.
and
Yeah,
fulfilling. And
yeah.
so, and with that, when we have patients, when we have students, when we have people that train under us or whatever, they
Mm.
then come to recognize that authenticity.
Yeah.
So I
And it's
think that,
sustainable. And it's sustainable, right? Being
and it's
yourself is
sustainable
sustainable.
because you're just being you.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
then the other thing that we start to recognize as we get older is that when we start to have this level of introspection to be more genuine and authentic to ourselves, is then we start to kind of weed out, you know, those external factors that have made us disingenuine, have made us non-authentic, whether it's
Absolutely.
like, certain responsibilities, whether it's, certain people, certain circles, certain friends, certain acquaintances. That's when you start to recognize that, let's say your friend circle shrinks down, or, the people
Right.
that you associate with, because you start to recognize that, sometimes people also don't necessarily appreciate the genuine and the authentic you anymore because you spent so much time trying to just, project this aura or energy of people pleasing. And
Right.
so then now that you kind of like move into your authentic and genuine self, it doesn't necessarily vibe and manifest with everybody around you. So then things and energy, they shift, and then you almost gain a sense of peace, I feel,
Yeah.
recognizing that I did good for me.
I did good, right? Yeah. And it's having that self-compassion that, okay, wherever I'm at, I did good, and respect yourself and be happy with whatever you've done. And that may not be the best in someone else's eyes, but it should be good enough for you. That's huge. And I think also just always having goals. Goals keep us motivated, right? Having goals, fulfilling them or trying to fulfill them and being happy and satisfied with yourself. That's so great.
Goals are wonderful because goals revert back to, again, your sense of purpose. The reason
Mhm.
that you wake up in the morning every day, right? You have something to look forward to. That feeling of accomplishment. Like, how many times have you like put together a piece of furniture, and then once you've completed it, you've kind of almost gotten on the high, right? Because it's felt
Yeah,
so
yeah.
good to finish
For
it.
me, it's organizing a drawer. If I've organized a drawer, I'm on a high.
Oh,
It's
100%. Totally,
amazing.
right? So, overhauling your closet, so all of
Yeah.
these things, right? Like they provide such a sense of accomplishment. So I think when you do develop goals, then it gives you something to look forward to.
Yeah.
And so goal setting is extremely important. Don't attach a timeline to it because that's pressure.
Right.
And then all of a sudden now
Right.
you've attached pressure and standards. But give yourself those goals and then give yourself that sense of purpose and something to look forward to.
Right.
And that makes life all the more enjoyable.
Yeah. I mean, I also am someone who's going to say, but that doesn't mean your goals, you wait 4 years to start working on them, right?
Yeah.
You won't feel that sense of purpose then. It's,
Mm-hmm.
you have to start making baby steps towards that so that you feel that sense of purpose. Do you feel that in your workplace, like just with your team, um, that your team is very supportive of each other, trying to make those career advancements within your clinic. Do you feel that way?
I feel so blessed. I call my team the dream team.
Hmm.
I think that just, they were put in my path to help support, my passion for doing what it is that I do. I think that, at first when I first bought my clinic and I transformed part of it and built the dry eye clinic from within it, they were very skeptical. Patients are not going to buy these therapies. Patients are not going to do these out of
Hmm.
pocket procedures. They're not going to take the time. And then when they started seeing how I was giving these recommendations and I was making people feel better and it was changing their outlook, and they would walk out of the exam room, go to the front desk, and they'd be smiling from ear to ear. And then it ignited that motivation and passion from within my staff. And they were already so phenomenal and they cared about patients so much. But then seeing that, from their leader only reignited their passion so much more. So I think that, the team around me has really been instrumental
Yeah.
in getting me to where I am today because they've been so supportive. And I have to say that, it always is a collection of people that, are standing in the shadows, and they're doing so much work to get that
Right.
person. You can't do
Yeah.
everything alone. And so when I think about it, I think about my manager, my receptionist, and my technicians. I think about my mom. I think about my children's sitter slash tutor. Like, I think about all of these people who have been so instrumental in my life to put me and push me into this trajectory. And there's no way that one person can ever do everything on their own. And
No,
so
no,
to
no.
have that support and to have that team is just, it's been so humbling for me because they've really brought me to where I have always wanted to be, but then they've also been so supportive of my mission and my passion. So I
I
couldn't I
love
couldn't have done that.
that.
I could not have done it
I
without them.
love that. Because you know what? They recognize that when you believe in your team so much and you respect what they do every single day, your team members probably really recognize that, and they just work harder and love their job even more. They're more motivated because they see you motivated, you respecting them, and respecting that each person on your team has a place.
Hmm.
And without that person, your team can fall apart. And that's
Absolutely.
huge.
Yeah.
So, honestly, thank you for today's conversation. I think our listeners and viewers really enjoyed it, but you have to tell us where they can find you. If they want to go to your clinic, where can they find you?
So my clinic is located in North York, 1333 Shepherd Avenue East in the North York Medical Arts Building. We are online at www.torontomedicaleyeassociates.ca. On Instagram, my handle is I Dr. Taji. So that's just EYEDRTAGI. Did I say G? Oh my goodness. Um, so feel free to reach out. We'd be happy to have you. And thank you so much, Meenal, for having me on this podcast. It was truly an honor.
Thank you. And the feeling is mutual. It was an honor to have you. So thank you, Dr. Taji. Thank you, listeners and viewers, for tuning in. If you want to catch more episodes of Uncover Your Eyes, make sure to follow or subscribe on your favorite podcast platform and on YouTube. To learn more about me, follow me on Instagram at dr.Meenal Agarwal. Until next time, keep those eyes uncovered.